Hello and welcome back to the AAT'S podcast, episode number 12 with myself, Addy of AddiBiotics.
And me, Aiden.
Aiden who?
Riley.
There we go. No, I'm joking. Hello, anybody home? Think
Riley.
So.
I think so. Think Riley.
You're not McFly, so I can't really call you that. But yeah, as you'll obviously imagine that we are talking about Back to the Future Part 2 today. Again, just as great as the original.
Yes, I agree.
And it had some great little twists and turns in that as well that you didn't really expect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a really great sequel. And did you know that originally they didn't want to plan a sequel to it?
I'm not actually surprised.
I mean, because back in the 80s, like, if a movie did so well, very rarely they would have done a sequel to it. Like, for example, when we talked about Tango and Cash, and they didn't do a sequel to it, but a lot of people, like, suspecting, well,
They didn't, yeah. If they would have done a sequel to that film, it would have been pointless.
Yeah, in a way it would have been. But like, say for example, obviously they did sequels to all the Rambo movies. They did sequels to Lethal Weapon. They did sequels to Rocky. Because in the 70s is when the first two Rocky movies came out. Then Rocky 3 and 4 came out in the 80s. 5 came out very soon as the 90s kicked in. And then you had Rocky Balboa come out in 2006.
So, alright, so if they would have done another Tango and Cash.
Yeah.
And I know this is a bit off topic, so sorry about this, but we normally do this anyway, don't we?
Yeah.
So, do you think they would have got some fresh ideas, better ideas than the first one?
I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. We wouldn't have known if unless it had happened. But who knows? Maybe one day. They're even now still talking about doing a sequel to Tango and Cash.
Oh no!
They'll probably be the retired captains. Probably their grandkids. Their grandkids will probably take over the.
That is the only thing that they can possibly do for that film.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's fine. And also, I was going to say to you, so moving into the plot of Back to the Future 2, so obviously, as you know, it picks up exactly 1 second after the original Back to the Future. And did you notice they changed Jennifer in the movie?
Yeah.
And did you know who that girl was who played Jennifer?
No.
Come on, we reviewed a movie of her. In the original Karate Kid, the girl who played Ali Mills, she took over the role of Jennifer.
Oh, okay.
Because the original actress, what had happened was, because her mother was dying. Her mother was diagnosed with cancer at the time, and that was
she was going through a lot personally.
So she said that she actually withdrew from. She actually, stopped acting because her mother was diagnosed. Claudia Wells, beautiful girl, very very beautiful girl. Who did you find more attractive, the first one or the second one?
Second one.
Did you? No, okay, fair enough.
Did you find the first one?
Yeah.
I mean, they're both great.
Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth Shue, still a good-looking lady.
They're both great.
Still a good-looking woman. And did you know who actually turned up in this movie, his very first film? Elijah Wood, who went on to play Frodo in Lord of the Rings.
I didn't know that.
That was precious information I just gave.
That was precious information.
That was precious.
Frodo Baggins, his first actual role.
Actually, believe it or not, the first movie I ever saw, again, sorry to go off topic, but again, this is what we do. The first movie I ever saw of, what's his name? Elijah Wood was actually in a movie with Mel Gibson. That was actually the first movie I ever saw them two together. And the movie was called Forever Young. We have to review that movie because it's got some good... Because to me, Mel Gibson's a great actor. He's a great director, not just because of Braveheart. But if you watch some of his movies, because to me, he's an all-round actor. He can do everything from action to comedy, thriller, romance, anything. Even animation, he can do it. And he could also write and direct. Oh yeah, definitely. That's for sure. So the story of Back to the Future 2 is Marty goes back from... He's gotten back from the past when he has to be picked up by Doc, and he goes, we got to go to the future this time. So they got to go 30 years ahead of time. And the job is like, he's doing whatever he can do, but he has to prevent disastrous results back in 1985, where he's originally from. Because what was quite interesting was when he goes to the future, he doesn't realize he's made a mistake, has he? And a lot of people are paying the price for that mistake that he's made. Because what was quite interesting was you kind of see a different side of Marty in this one. At the beginning, he's still that same kid you see for the very first time. and then you see him again, and you get a sense of greed coming out of him.
In the second one.
Yeah, in the second one, when they end up in the future, and that date, October 22nd, 2015. Believe it or not, you know, on that actual date in our present moment in time, 2015, they actually declare that Back to the Future Day.
Yes, I know.
It was epic. It was absolute epic. That was.
I remember it.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who had like a smartwatch, and he put the flux capacitor picture on it as well. It was like, that was sad. That was. And so what happened was, you see that because when he goes into the future, Doc's still trying to keep him grounded. Like, you know, I didn't create this for financial gain, because he says that to him, doesn't he? Because this is not I didn't create the time machine because of financial gain. I did it to explore history. He goes, yeah, Doc, I'm all for that, but what's wrong with making a few extra bucks on the side?
Yes, and that's when Doc is like,
what am I doing am I corrupting this kid? Because then he starts realizing, Doc, over time, what he did was a mistake. He's kind of sensing building that DeLorean was a mistake for him.
Yeah, he goes through a regretful period, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. And then you also see him at a moment in time where he's now even paying the price for it.
Oh, right. So it's alright, so I've got one for you.
Go for it.
So right. 1 second. After Biff gets his cane stuck in DeLorean upon returning to 2015, he starts to thrash around in pain, apparently having a hard time from the exertion. Robert Zemeckis has stated that Biff has experienced this, the same thing Marty did at the dance in the first movie.
Oh, yeah.
Fading out of history, the idea was that by going back in time to give the sports almanac to his younger self, Biff had somehow altered his own future so that he no longer existed in the year 2015. According to script drafts, Biff's wife, Marty's mother, had shot and killed the abusive Biff in 1996. The deleted scene in the DVD extras makes this much clearer as we actually see Biff vanish. So she actually.
I need to find the DVD collection and watch that scene.
So she actually shot him.
Yeah, because he was quite horrible.
Well, he was, yeah.
He was horrible. So remember, he shifts off both of Marty's siblings to boarding schools. I think the younger one, the older brother Dave, goes to prison or something, just like as Marty's uncle Joey from the first one. And what was quite funny, the fact that Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis admitted on the DVD that they're originally not interested in doing a sequel to Back to the Future, even though it was a huge hit. As mentioned, Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale have admitted on the DVD commentary that they were not originally interested in doing the sequel to Back to the Future, even though it was one of the biggest hits of 1985, and that the open ending of the movie was simply meant as a final joke. However, when there were plans for a sequel made by the studio, they chose to remain involved in the continuation of their creation and even extended it to 2 sequels.
Well, if you look at it this way, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, we can compare this to The Matrix.
Yeah.
They recently brought out Resurrections. You can tell that they didn't really want to do a sequel. So, but obviously, this one, Matrix 4 was terrible, but we were lucky that Back to the Future 2, because it obviously was a great film, but originally they didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But the studio wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So they had to do it, because if they didn't do it, they probably would have got somebody else to do it. That's the thing, isn't it? So they thought, no, this is our creation. We're not going to let you ruin it by getting somebody else. We made this, so we're going to come back and do a better or as better film. I'm glad they came back.
I was glad. Everybody was glad that they came back, because it was interesting to see where did they go after that car, because nobody saw the car fly before, did they?
No.
Until they saw it in this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, I loved seeing the car fly.
I think everybody who watched the film back then in 1987, people would have loved to have seen in 2015, that year, do we have flying cars this time around? So 89. This one was actually made in 89. My mistake. Yeah, a good line in that was, Doc, you got to back up. You're not going to have enough road to hit 88. Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads.
Where are we going? We don't need roads.
Yeah.
It ends here, right?
No, yeah, and part 1 ends right there.
Yeah, and then obviously in the second one it starts. It starts in the future.
Yeah, exactly. So talking about, so he's mentioned about Marty becoming quite greedy, but then again he's mentioned the fact that he's admitted to his mistakes, and then he's like, oh, now I understand why Doc should never have created this thing in the first place. And Doc, on the other hand, moving on to him, he's like mentioning it as well, because he's prevented a tragedy from taking place, hasn't he? He's prevented you know, Marty's kids, Marty Jr., to not commit a crime, because he's seen what Biff was like, and Biff's become a criminal. He's got his grandson Griff has become a criminal himself. He's worse than the grandfather was back then. And then you see him in then you see the same thing happening. Like, remember the first one when Biff hasn't changed at all. Even he's like probably in his mid-80s or something, and he's like going to McFly, say hi to your grandma for me. And then like in the first one, say hi to your mom for me. Which is again a funny line.
He hasn't changed one bit.
He hasn't changed one bit. Funny thing is, I don't think he says that in the third part, does he? Mad Dog, Tannen, Buford.
No, he just calls him what the other Biffs call him, like chicken or yellow,
Butthead.
Which is or butthead. But yellow is another version of chicken, isn't it? What are you, yellow? That's another version of chicken.
Calls me yellow.
Obviously, we're going to talk about that later.
Definitely, yeah, definitely will do.
But yeah.
And what was quite, and then according to Michael J. Fox, when he found out that the studio was going to be doing a sequel, and when he watched the VHS version, because obviously there was no DVDs back then, them days, or Blu-rays, the words "to be continued" were added to the end, and he immediately called his agent to make sure that he was going to be in the sequel. Let's face it, without Michael J. Fox, that movie never would have been good.
No, but this again, you know, this is an apparent thing. You cannot have
a different
Marty. You cannot have Marty without Michael J. Fox.
No.
You can't. I mean, you just can't.
yeah, and like he made.
It would have been the same.
He kind of made Pepsi a bit famous, didn't he?
Yes.
Like all the Pepsi frees, and he's like the first one. He goes, "Give me a Pepsi free." He goes, "You want a Pepsi? You'll pay for it." He goes, "Give me some of that, any sugar." All right, here, coffee. You just have that. And because they do the same thing in this one as well, don't they? Another Pepsi. And because that Doc says in it, go in there. Here's this. Here, take some money. Go in there and get a Pepsi because your son's on the way here. And he looks at his own son like he's a wimp. I got to do something about him when I meet him originally, when he meets him for the first time. And
because he goes to his house, doesn't he?
Yeah, he has to sneak in, and there's no door handles. Yeah. There's none of that stuff.
He sees his own son.
Yeah. And Jennifer, the girl in that as well, she's like basically saying the same thing. Like, she's looking too much into her future, and Doc's like, it's too dangerous for you to know too much about your future. Anyone to know about their future, like what he mentions in the first one, isn't it? When he goes, if I know too much about the future now, I'm going to jeopardize a lot of events that's going to be taking place. Well,
like he says that when he messes with the future in the first one,
yeah,
the pictures start to
fade.
Yeah. His image starts to fade. Everybody's image starts to fade. So obviously you can't do that again in the future, because in the first one, at the end, Doc comes back and he goes,
you gotta come.
So he's like, you gotta come with me. When? 2000. It's till the future. Because why? He's like, we got to do something about your kids, Marty. It's your kids. We have to do something about your kids. He's like.
And then he goes, why did you bring Jennifer along with you? He goes, because she was there. She saw the car. What am I supposed to do? And then he blinds her, like puts her to sleep and everything, doesn't he?
Yeah, and she obviously comes with them to the future.
And then she wakes up in that house, and then she's like, when she sees her old self, and the old self sees the young self at the same time. I'm old. I'm young. And then they both pass out. Oh no, she's just been knocked. Is she dead? He goes, no, she's just been knocked out for a while, but she'll have a good night's sleep. And then when they get back into town, because like she looks around her house, where she's getting married. She goes, I'm going to get married here. I'm going to be living here. I'm going to see that. He goes, no, don't do that. Don't do that. This is not right. Doc's warning them both non-stop, because obviously he's a scientist, he knows what he's doing. He knows the fact that if they ask too much about the future, it's going to be hazardous.
I think it's safe to say that this is a
precaution,
like a fictional future.
Yeah.
Like if they don't change certain things, then this will end up being their future.
Yeah.
They can do something about it, or can they?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. If you ask too many questions, you just don't really know, do you? You get your head all screwed up. I want to see my future.
I don't think you should see your future. Maybe a little bit of it, that if there's a big, huge, disastrous mistake on the way, you'll know how to avoid that. That's one thing. But it's the other thing. But if you know way, way too much, you'll do more harm than good.
Oh yes.
Whatever was, like, say, written for you is going to be unwritten, because you've unwritten it without you knowing about it. You were poking your nose where it wasn't required.
It's a horrible thing to think, where you go, okay, I want to see what I'm like in 10 years. Do you really want to see
what if that could just destroy you right now?
Because you could be anything, you could be anyone, but it might not be positive. It might be just the worst thing. I think this is another thing about Back to the Future. Would you want to see what you like in the future, or wouldn't you want to see what you like in the future? Because they always have a negative response, don't they? Yeah. It's like his negative response to his dad in the first one, a negative response to his future self.
Yeah.
The negative to future, what it was like in 1885.
Oh yeah.
Would you want to go back, or would you want to go forward?
That is true, yeah.
I'd rather stay present.
I wouldn't mind.
I'd love the DeLorean, but I wouldn't go in the future.
I wouldn't mind going back into the past a little bit, see how people lived, and then come back and be like, oh.
Yeah, I'd like that. If it's got nothing to do with me,
yeah,
I'd love that. I'd rather keep me away from me. From my relatives or anything from me. I'd rather see like the huge things that happened in the past. You know what
Definitely,
I mean? Like I don't know. I think I could say something like watching Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Fight, or
yes, I would love that.
Something like that.
Or even hang out, even ask Bruce Lee to train.
Oh wow,
that'd be my ultimate back in time.
Wow, just imagine
that. Just say, have at least maximum 5 lessons of Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do. That's what I would do.
That'd be incredible.
Definitely. Sure. Or another great thing is go back in time, way further back, and see the Great Wall of China being created. Just thought of that idea.
Yeah, but how long would you stay for?
I don't know.
How long?
Till they serve lunch.
How long?
I don't know. Probably at least.
Would you watch it all the way? Be built?
I'd watch it. I'll watch quite a few sections of it.
Yeah, that would still take some time.
Yeah, that'd probably be worth the wait.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah. Okay.
I'll see the leaning the Tower of Pisa before it leaned, and then see it as it was original, and then see it leaning forward a bit further.
I'd love to see. The Eiffel Tower being delivered.
Oh,
because that was a present, wasn't it?
Okay. Yeah, I've been on the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah. I haven't been on it. I've been next to it, but I haven't been on it.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see it being delivered before Paris became Paris, of course.
Yeah, definitely. That's for sure. Alright, so going on to another character, Biff. If you look at it, there's 3 different types of Biffs in this one, isn't it? Compared to the first 2 that we saw in the first one. You have Biff that he was at the end of part 1, at the beginning of part 2. He's the car, he's cleaning people's cars for a living and everything like that. And then you have Biff when he's given himself the almanac and he's become the rich, powerful guy that he is. And then you have the young Biff again when he goes, but Marty has to go back to 1955 to stop him from getting the almanac.
Yep, 3 Biffs.
3 Biffs.
That's the first Biff that you see.
Yeah.
In the first one.
Yeah, definitely.
The big bully. And obviously the second one we see is the one that's married. The middle-aged one, isn't he?
Yeah, the older one, yeah.
The older one, and then you've got the granddad one, the granddad version.
Yeah.
The very old one. Thanks.
Hey, Gramps, I said 2 axes are cut on the
where he slaps him round the back of the head with the book.
When he goes, why don't you make like a tree and get out of here? It's make like a tree and leave. You sound like an idiot when you talk like that. That was a good scene. I mean, like, because remember, if you look back in them days, there was no special effects as you could do. I mean, there was some special effects because obviously they had to film Thomas F. Wilson in one as the young Biff, and then refilm him again as the old Biff, and then combine those 2 scenes together. Mm. And and another great thing about the DeLorean. Obviously, what's the greatest thing on that? It flies this time round. That was the greatest thing in that. It flies.
There is no other thing to say. The car flies, man. That's everything that anyone could ever dream of, especially back then when people were talking about, the year 2000. When people were in the 60s, they were talking about what's it going to be like in the year 2000. Oh, there might be flying cars. And obviously, when they go into 2015,
there are flying cars.
There's flying cars. That's when he says, "Roads, where are we going? We don't need roads." And then the car just lifts up. And you're like,
cool. I like that scene in part 2 where Marty and Doc have come back from the future in 1985. What they don't realise, the future's been altered because of Marty, but Marty doesn't realise what he's done. And then you see, that private jet flying over them, like that. That was a good scene. And then Marty realizes there and then that when he drops Jennifer off at the house, because I didn't remember these bars being on the window, and he says that, and it's like that kind of gives you a hint like what's happened. He's walking through the street. He goes back to his own house.
It's the place has just been massacred, hasn't it? Everything, the buildings, a lot of businesses have been shut. There's a lot of homeless people. The theatre that I used to go to is closed.
Yeah.
There's a rubbish on the street. Everything's just ruined. And you think,
and then when you see
what the hell's he done?
The clock tower, Biff's brought that.
Yeah.
And then he sees the history, like what's happened, and then he's like,
it's all Biff.
It's like Biff Valley, not Hill Valley.
It's all Biff. Everything's
Valley,
Biff.
Yeah. And then they knock him out and they put him on, and that same thing happens. Mom, is that you?
And then the part where he gets knocked out, where he goes, "Do you want to do it the easy way or the hard way?" And he goes,
"The easy way."
It's like, "I'll do it the hard way." Is it okay?
Bang.
And he goes, "Actually, no." He says the easy way, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And you just hear a voice in his head go, "The easy way." And he wakes up and he's like, "Mom,
is that you?" And then again, they use the same clip in every movie. They basically, in a way, kind of tell the same story in every movie, but it's set in a different time.
Yeah, it's a rehash, isn't it?
It's
it's completely different. It's just a rehash. It's the original idea, because obviously in the first one, he wakes up in the house, his mum's there. Obviously, she's a lot younger, and she's looking after him. In the second one, he wakes up, she's there, she's looking after him, but this time she's a lot older.
Yeah.
It happens in the third one though, doesn't it?
But that's his ancestor, isn't it?
But she's
from Ireland in that one.
Yeah. There's always a mother figure in it.
There is, yeah. And then you see the other scene where you have when Marty's been hit so hard and she's like, "How can you leave Dad for that?" She goes, "They must have hit you too hard this time." And I goes, "What? Your father's been dead for so many years." And he goes to the graveyard, and there's Doc. Doc turns up, because if Doc hadn't turned up, he'd have been lost forever, Marty. And the reason why Crispin Glover, who played George McFly in the first part, he sued the filmmakers as he was not granted permission to use his likeliness in part 2. And the lawsuit was like, it would have...
Was that why he was in the second one?
That's why he was in the second one. And
wow, I wonder what it would have been like then if he was in the second one. I bet that would have been... Wow.
Yeah, what would have happened to George in that one? And then they said that he ended up dropping the lawsuit after the case was settled for about $765,000 by Universal's insurance company, who decided it would be cheaper just to pay off Crispin than go to trial.
So, what was the verdict then? What was the end result?
They said that it will pay him off because we didn't use his... he had to give permission to say use my likeliness for this scene.
Do you think it would have been? Do you think it was a big loss for not having?
I think in a way, yeah, and in a way, no.
Yeah, because I think having George McFly in this, I mean, where would you have gone with him? There's no room for him really in this film. I mean, yeah, we all know that he ended up being a world-known author,
yeah,
and a very wealthy one.
Yeah, especially you realise that in part one.
I mean, they could have got a divorce or something, and Marty might have had to try and get them both together to try and, rejig a few things. No.
Yeah, that's true. And also history behind the scenes talk. The film it was filmed at the same time as Back to the Future 3. They filmed them both back to back because it came out literally the very next year. Part 3 did, and it was claimed that at the time, in the 4 years since Back to the Future 1 was made, Michael J. Fox had forgotten how to ride a skateboard. However, his motor skills are not easily so lost as like riding a bike. But then since then he stated that this was an early symptom of his Parkinson's disease. And then he goes, although the medical diagnosis was not made until 1991, that he realised that he's got Parkinson's disease.
That's a tragedy, isn't it? Because that's one of the reasons why we don't see him anymore.
Yeah, he's retired now. I think most likely he has retired from acting. But Michael, thank you so much for giving us Back to the Future. Thank you so much for creating one of the legendary characters.
Yes.
Marty McFly, because you made some of the 80s era legendary.
Teen Wolf.
Yeah, Family Ties, the TV series he used to do that got him quite recognised. And Teen Wolf, absolutely classic. Secret of My Success, that was another good movie. But to us, you'll always be Marty McFly.
He's Marty McFly. It's just
legend.
You can't escape.
Every kid wanted to be like Marty McFly in a way.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Now that we just touched base on that subject, growing up, which character did you want to be like from? Either pick one from TV and pick one from a movie. I'll do the same.
What?
Growing up in the 80s, like obviously pick one character that you wanted to be like, that you kind of modelled yourself around, like one from a TV show that you liked and one from a movie that you loved.
Oh, okay. So I was a big fan of Transformers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
So I think that I would have picked one of the turtles from obviously Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was a big fan of Raphael.
Oh, who wasn't? The tough one.
Yeah. And movie was the Transformers film.
Okay.
I loved, I think it was Hot Rod.
Cool choice.
I loved Hot Rod in that film because he becomes the leader, doesn't he?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, cartoons really for me. So that would have been me really for those two. Obviously, it would have been impossible for me being a human being.
Yeah, of course. And being a turtle as well.
Being a turtle, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not possible.
No.
So, but when you're a kid, you're like, man, I'd love to be a turtle. Man, I'd love to be a Transformer.
You watch the line at the end of the movie, the original movie, where he goes, "God, I love being a turtle."
Yeah.
I think it was Michelangelo who said that, or was it?
I think it was. I think it was Michelangelo. Yeah, they loved their pizza, man.
Oh, yeah, they did. They kind of made pizza a bit famous as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because I remember in the opening sequence of Part 2, Secret of the Ooze, everywhere you look, someone's having a slice of pizza.
Yeah.
Even the police, when they've apprehended a guy, they're standing there eating a slice of pizza, which was quite funny. All right,
what about you?
Okay, TV-wise, I love to have been Sonny Crockett, Don Johnson's character from Miami Vice. That was one. I also liked Faceman from The A-Team.
Oh.
And I do mean Dirk Benedict, by the way, because he was just he drove a cool car. He drove the Corvette ZR1, which was one of my all-time favourite cars. And also, movie-wise, I would say Rambo. John Rambo.
Oh, yeah.
Not because of being the Stallone fan, because Rambo to me was just, he knew, just his courage, his attitude, like Rambo in a way is like Rocky, somebody anyone can relate to.
He's Rocky with guns.
No. Well, yeah, those guns that you see.
Yeah, he's Rocky with ammunition. And,
actually no. If you look at it, he goes up against, when we do talk about Rocky, he does go up against adversaries that are a lot bigger than him, stronger than him, a bit way more skillful than him. But one thing that always determines his outcome is his heart, his determination, and one thing, his ferocious body attacks that he does. Because if you look at Rocky, he hits the head sometimes, but he hits more the body shots.
He's more of a Mike Tyson style, isn't he?
No, that was actually what Clubber Lang in Part 3 was based on.
But Mike Tyson normally went for the ribs and the body and the abdomen.
The easiest place to hit somebody.
Yeah, because he was an inside fighter.
Oh yeah.
Because he was only 5'10" like Rocky.
Mm-hmm.
So Rocky, when he's going up against taller guys, he can't throw a long range jab. He can't throw a long range punch. So he's got to come inside. And once he does, he showed that with going up against Dolph Lundgren's character. Drago, yes.
I must break you.
He got him good in that. Obviously, Drago, if that was a real fight, it would have been done.
People actually said after Rocky 4, Dolph Lundgren looked like he could have become a heavyweight champion. Well, I'm not surprised with the size of him.
That was a giant.
6'5".
Yeah.
Yeah.
So of course he could have become a heavyweight champion.
That is true, yeah. So, okay, and...
back to it.
Yeah, we're coming back to the future.
Back to the future.
Back to the future. Back to this future, a topic I'm talking about. All right, so that was all. So as I mentioned earlier on, they declared October 22nd, 2015 was Back to the Future Day. They declared that in the US, and it travelled all the way down here for all the big fans. And what was another great scene about that movie was Doc spoke a lot of good sense in it. One of my favourite scenes in that was, when Marty comes back and he's seen Doc at the graveyard, and Doc goes, "I knew you were going to come here." He goes, "Well, how did you find out?" He goes, "I'm sorry about your father, but you need to come and see this." He goes, "I've been declared insane, and here's the newspaper clipping." And then he goes, "Yeah, because there's a scene in that, isn't it, where and then he goes, "You need to." So he goes, "Why can't we just go to the future and stop Biff from getting the almanac? Because this is why I told you I should not have created the time machine. Because look what the damage it's doing all the way around us.
And look what the damage it's done to him.
Yeah.
Look what the damage it's done to Marty.
Yeah.
It's damaged.
it's damaged everything. Yeah. And then what happens is when he sees the
that's another saying, like, be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah, because in a way, Marty was like, "Okay, I'll take this, I'll never lose." And Biff says that to young Biff as well. "Keep this book, bet on the winner, and you'll never lose." And he says that to him, doesn't
he? It's too easy.
Life is way too easy.
Life isn't supposed to be that easy. It's not.
Yeah.
We everybody knows that. And I think Biff made a huge mistake in going back in time as well.
Yeah.
To give himself that. And that's another thing it refers to. Again, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Biff wants to be rich. He wants to be this. He wants to be that. But look what it did to him.
Yeah, it was killing him slowly. Because if you look at it, as you just mentioned on that deleted scene where you see Biff's fading, that means he's probably dying in that one time. And it's affecting him right now.
Yeah.
And then you see... And then when Biff, like I say, I'll talk about one of my personal favourite scenes. When they go back to Doc's garage, and it's obviously leaking, it's all damaged and everything, because Doc's not been there for so many years. And then Marty goes, "Why don't we just go to the future and stop old Biff from getting the almanac?" He goes, "No. If we go, so he goes, say this line represents time. This is the alternate 1985. This is 2015 where we came from. If we go from this alternate 1985 to this 2015, Biff's way more corrupt, and he's married to your mother. He's got the police in his pockets. He's got this, that, and the other. The only option we have is if we go from this 1985 back to 1955 and stop him from giving himself the almanac. So all you need now from Biff is to know what was the date he was given the almanac.
Because if you go in the future and change it, and go back to 1985, that's been changed as well.
Yeah.
But if you go back before 1985, to change 2015,
yeah,
you're gonna make things better.
Yeah.
But if you change things in the future, it makes things worse because it will change too much and screw up 1985 as well as 1980 and 1975 and 1960.
Until they go back completely to stop.
You've got to go back to change the future. You can't go future. You can't go to the future to change the present and the past.
No.
That's what it's saying. If that made sense, but you know that's because the film is.
Yeah, we should call our scientist in sometime and get him to declare what is right and what's wrong. Yeah, that was actually one of the best scenes in that whole movie, where you see Doc explaining the dangers of what Marty has done. That time is not something to be fooled with. And as you mentioned yourself in it, you can't go to the future to do this, go to the present, go to the past to fix the future, something like that. 'Cause there's a saying I once heard, it goes, past is history, the future is a mystery, that's why you live in the present.
But you can't get any more true than that.
You can't get any more true than that, can you? As Marty's like basically alternating his own life story by trying to cheat a little bit. Then Doc's kind of showing to him that what you're doing, cheating is not, look what the damage cheating's doing. You gave yourself that almanac, you threw it away. Right there, old Biff picked it up. He had the power at his fingertips. A DeLorean. When he says in it, a flying DeLorean, I haven't seen that in 30 years.
I mean, that's it. I mean, like I said before, if you make things too easy for yourself,
yeah, of course it's just causing it's caused way too much damage, hasn't it?
It's just a form of arrogance as well and ignorance, isn't it? From the young lad, it's just over expectations.
Yeah.
And you think that everything that you do that you think is good isn't always going to be good.
No. No, not in the long run.
Yeah, and he shows that's what Doc's trying to tell him. You be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you change. What you've changed now may look good, but it might cause some harm in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And it has caused harm, but it didn't cause harm just in the future. It caused harm in the past without him knowing about it. He goes back. What's all happening when he meets Mr. Strickland? He goes, "Who you that guy? You that kid who's been stealing all my newspapers?" "Sir, I mean Marty McFly." "Who? You gave me detention last week." He goes, "The school burnt down so many years ago." He's like, "What's happening?" He's running through the streets. No, his house he's jumped into, it's all been boarded up. The house has been new people have moved in.
Yeah, a black family.
Yeah,
they've been moved in, and he climbs into bed, and the girl's in there. And he's like, "Mom, Dad!" He's like, "Whoa,
what are you doing in my room?"
He's like, "What do you mean?" It's like, And then the dad comes in. It's like, "Hey!" He's like, "Holy crap, what is going on?" And then obviously he has to hop out of the window, and then that's when he runs out of the street to the left. He goes into town. He says, "What has happened to my town?"
Yeah.
And then he
sees what's happened to the town.
And then he sees the poster of Biff, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And then he walks through that. Is it that little museum?
Sort of, yeah. It's sort of like a museum.
It's like Biff Tannen or something like that, and it's showing you all of Biff's achievements and everything, and how Biff. And then it shows you the book.
Yeah.
The
almanac.
Yeah, the almanac with all the gambling and the booking stuff like that. He's thinking, what is this? And then doesn't he see Doc then, doesn't he?
Yeah, he sees Doc a little bit further down the line, because Doc's gone back to his place and realised it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And then Marty's realised, okay, I've caused a lot of damage, we need to fix this. But actually that scene where he's explaining the line of time, one of the best scenes ever in the whole trilogy. Even though it's not a very long scene, but it's still one of the best scenes ever.
The shortest scenes have the best acting in it, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
You see some amazing acting in the short scenes. It's like one of them's The Dark Knight, when the Joker is having the interrogation with Batman.
Yeah.
The acting in that is just incredible. And again, the acting where Doc Brown is explaining to Marty, right, look, here's the present and here's the future. And then he explains everything in such a short amount of time, thinking,
okay,
but that's great writing.
Yeah, it is. Hats off to Bob Gale And Robert Zemeckis for writing that scene. It was absolutely amazing.
I've got one for you.
Go for it.
Right, so in this movie, a disguised 1985 Doc Brown holds a conversation with his 1955 counterpart.
Yeah.
1985 Doc is wearing a brown trench coat and hat. If you look carefully in Back to the Future, 1985, you can see a man dressed exactly like this. And therefore, presumably, Doc walking away shortly before the clock tower scene.
Yeah. Wow.
In the DVD commentary, it explains that this was not intentional, as the script for Back to the Future 2 hadn't even been written at the time that they filmed the first one. So it was just kind of like
foreshadowing what was to come.
Yeah, in a way. So that was I didn't notice that. Obviously, we're not going to notice that because I was very when I watched it. I recently watched it a few years back as well. You know, when it was on the TV.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, exactly.
What was another good scene was, okay, so we can talk about favourite scenes now. Another great scene in that is when Marty realises that Biff killed his dad in order to get to his mum. And then maybe that's what foreshadowed the deleted scene that we didn't see where Lorraine's killed Biff for being so abusive. Because she's probably figured out herself, okay, he killed George. And I got to finish him off now. He destroyed our family. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And then what was also another good scene was where Marty's on the roof and he's like, Biff goes, 2 McFlys with the same gun. And he jumps off the building and then bang, there's Doc and he opens the door, whacks him in the face with it. That was such a cool scene. He goes, good shot, Doc. He goes, you won't believe it, we gotta go back to the past, we gotta go back to 55. And then they're like, oh, hang on, Marty, we gotta go.
Yeah.
Them two definitely have a father-son relationship.
Well, yeah.
It's similar to, I would say, definitely Daniel and Mr. Miyagi.
Well, he spends a lot more. Oh, yeah. I definitely agree with you.
Definitely, it's got a reaction.
I definitely agree with you there.
It's kind of similar to, in the first 3 Rocky movies, Mick, Rocky's trainer, is with Rocky. You don't know anything about Rocky's father, and he kind of looks at Mick like a father figure. And the same thing even happens in the first 3 Rambo movies. Rambo looks at Colonel Troutman, his team leader, as a father figure. And in the book, which I'll mention when we talk about the original Rambo, there's so much interesting stuff in that. Yeah, it was based on a novel, First Blood, by David Morrell. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had to end up buying the book, and I'm going to get some research for that as well. So I can't, and we're getting Tal on there to say why he likes Rambo 2 so much. Okay, so what's your favourite scene in Back to the Future 2?
My favourite scene? I think it's got to be... You know, there's so many scenes.
Yeah.
There is so many scenes. Let me think. All right. I love. Yeah. It's almost 10 o'clock at night.
And it's still daylight.
I love the effects where the flying cars.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I love
for its time. It was groundbreaking.
I love that. I love when they go back to the school as well.
Yeah.
1955, because he comes out.
Yeah.
And he has to run away from himself.
Yeah, in avoiding to see him. So that scene. Now that you mentioned, that scene was epic, where you see the second Marty with the black hat and the.
Because he can't. Obviously, he's looking at himself. I mean, this was a great scene for me. He's looking at himself performing Johnny Be Good.
Yeah.
So he has to time it just right. So when he sees himself walking out, he's got to walk the other way. And he climbs down, and then he gets spotted. But obviously, we don't see Biff.
Yeah.
So when he runs, they run the opposite direction. They run out the door where he runs.
Yeah.
And then when he thinks he's lost them all, Biff turns up. He's like, "Oh,
yeah,
it's like, got you now, butthead. Yeah. Where are you gonna run to now?"
Yeah, that is true. I mean, that scene where Marty rings Doc and goes, "Doc, You won't believe. He goes, I'll meet you on the roof in 15 minutes. He goes, Doc, you don't understand. They're gonna jump. Me. He goes, well, get out of there. He goes, not me, the other me, the one who's on stage playing Johnny B. Good, the one who needs to get back to 1985. He goes, you have to make sure they don't stop the other you, because if you don't get back, it's going to cause damage here and everything. Is again, and he's like climbing up on the roof. It's kind of similar to part one where he goes, wait, Marty sees George for the first time and he goes, Dad, George, I mean, you, the guy on the bike. He's doing the same thing there. He goes, me, no, not me, the other me.
The other me.
It's kind of similar to that, isn't it? It's kind of like paying the homage to it. And then what was also funny was when you see the scene where...
But another thing as well, you know, when we talk about the book that makes Biff rich, what's it called again?
The Sports Almanac.
Yeah, the Sports Almanac, right? He doesn't drop it though, does he? He gets knocked out by the door.
Yeah, he does, yeah. By his other self. By his other self.
That's my thing. That's my best scene.
Yeah, that was a good scene. And then the other scene where...
Because Biff's like this.
Right, there's two of them.
What?
And it was even funny how stupid his cronies are when they go, how did he get on the stage so fast? And he goes, how did he change his clothes so fast? And everything. That was another funny scene as well. There's him. Hey, he's in disguise. He goes, guys, look. And then that was another funny prank. He does that in every movie. He goes, hey, what's that? And he's like, he hits him and everything as well. And then he does the same thing with the cronies. I think he does it in part 3 as well. I mean, it has been a while.
With Tanner.
With Mad Dog
Tanner. Yeah, Mad Dog Tanner. Yeah. I think he does.
And then what was also funny was another great scene is where they get the almanac back and then they're running. He goes, what you have to do now, you have to burn it by all means. And he's burnt it and he goes, oh, my father's alive. He goes, yeah, I'm not committed into a mental institute. Because if you look at it, when old Biff tells young Biff, one day a kid and a man who claims to be a scientist is going to come asking you questions about this. And then in the alternate 1985, that Biff is telling Marty that one day this man said he was a relative, I didn't see the resemblance, and we did this, we did that, we did this. And he told me one day a kid was going to come and he goes, I didn't realise that was going to be you. And he goes, all right, we need to find out. That was the date the clock tower gets struck with lightning, because we got to go back to that same date again. Which was, again, quite funny. And you see all that combination happening at the exact same time. Yes. You have Back to the Future 2, Back to the Future 1 meeting
all together. It's just epic. It's amazing. It's really clever writing.
Oh,
man.
Definitely.
It's clever writing.
On that one, bro.
And doesn't he look at the incident between... He looks at the incident between Biff and George and Lorraine as well, doesn't he? Yeah. From afar. But obviously he's looking at himself looking
at them too. And then but that was okay. What was your favourite prop in the movie other than the car?
Other than the car?
Other than the car. Oh, the car's legendary. The car's a character within its own right.
Alright, you took it away from me.
No, I don't mean like that. I mean, obviously you love the car the most, don't you?
Yeah.
But what else other than the car that you like?
I don't know.
I'll say those Nike trainers, the sneakers, what they would call in America. Where he just puts his feet in there and it ties up instantly. And the jacket that he had that, dries out the skin and everything, dries him out.
Oh, yes.
Hoverboard, would you say?
Yes, the hoverboard.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'll take the hoverboard. What about you?
I would say, that one. I like that little oven that they use when they throw that little pizza in there, and then a few seconds later, ding, and it's bigger all of a sudden. That was a cool oven.
That's in the beginning.
Yeah, you're right, because when me and Tal, when we did a food vlogging episode, I'm not sure if you remember the Kanoto pizza episode. Yeah. That pizza actually cooked in 90 seconds. It actually cooked in 90 seconds. I was like, have I time traveled directly into the future? That oven is like 20 years down the line or something like that. I don't know.
They're ahead of their game.
Yeah, thank you, Richard, and all the staff at Kanoto Pizza, not just for making the great food, but bringing that pizza oven into our lives as well. And we're going to bring this guy here down there as well to see.
Oh, yes, I love a pizza.
Oh, they make amazing pizzas. Richard's was just one of the nicest guys, the nicest people I've ever had the opportunity to meet. And all the staff there were as well.
They look really cool.
Oh, yeah, they were epic. We've got to go there for like a summer meal.
We will.
Definitely. We're going to demolish some pizza.
We will.
Yes. So those are the props. Okay, another good scene where Doc knew what was going to happen right at the very end. Where the car gets struck by lightning And he says, and then he knew.
It was an intense scene though, because you thought, are they going to make it? You knew they were going to make it in a way, but you thought, are they going to make it? Because in the first one, there wasn't the clock tower scene, was there? There was the clock tower scene, but you had to do it
again in the second.
Yeah, you got to do it again. But this time it's there's a lot more. There's a lot more to it.
Definitely.
And you think, oh my gosh, there's too much going off here. It was a lot more intense than the first time.
Yeah, definitely. And then you see the other scene where Doc's been struck by lightning and the car's gone. And Marty's trying to get a hold of him and he can't get a hold of him. And then all of a sudden that car comes and goes, we were told you were going to be here exact this moment in time on this date. We've had this in our possession for over 80 years. And it's a letter from Doc goes, I got stuck back in the Wild West. Because that was one of Doc's dreams, wasn't it? To go back into the Wild West. And he goes, all right, fine, I have to go run and find the other Doc. He's still got his DeLorean. And then he realised that it's been buried in the mine shaft for so many years. You find that out in part 3. And then he goes, all right, so we're going to have to go back and bring
that mysterious guy with the hat turns up, doesn't he?
That's what I was
like, Marty McFly? Yeah. It's got to look like a letter from Doc Brown. And he gives it him.
Yeah.
He's like, oh. And he reads it's like 1885. Stuck in the West.
Okay, gotta go get him.
Let's go get him.
Yeah, let's go get him. Okay, so alright, so on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you rate Back to the Future 2?
7.5.
Okay, I'll give it 8.
You give it 8?
8. It was a great sequel.
What did we give the first one? I gave the first one 8.
I think I gave it about a 9 myself again, because it's a great series. It was a great series, and it set a great genre for everybody.
Which benchmark?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was a benchmark of a movie, but it was definitely well worth it, I would say. And it made stars out of the actors. It made stars out of everybody. And without those actors, this never would have worked.
It was a near enough perfect trilogy.
Yes.
And again, I am really glad they didn't make a 4th one.
Yeah.
Because
it would have killed it.
Gosh, yes.
It would have killed it, definitely.
There was no need to do a 4th one.
No,
the 3rd one ended in brilliantly, but obviously that's till next time.
Till next time.
To be continued.
Yes, like it says in the movie, to be continued. We are going to continue this topic pretty soon. And then we're going to conclude this one and then bring out the next trilogy. Can you give a little hint of the next one? No, we'll save that for the next one. Definitely. Well, Aiden, thank you very much for coming in today. It's been an absolute pleasure as always, bro. Again, thank you to everybody out there who's always been supporting us. All the lads at my gym. Can't thank you enough for all your support, and I'll give you guys a mention on Insta as well. And just if you made it to the end of the podcast, give it a thumbs up, turn on notifications, click subscribe, because we have some more videos coming your way pretty soon as well.
And shout out to all our close friends, Tal, Will, Nicole, and everybody. We love you guys. Mantis, we all love you. We all need to get together soon. And to your gym buddies.
All my gym bros, yeah. The gym bros. We call bros, gym bros is what we're all called.
The gym bros.
The gym bros. Back in the days. No, they're still here. Because every day we see one another at the gym, we spot one another, we hang out with one another. It's just great. We stand there and just talk to someone, talk to them, just have a great general conversation as you ought to. And it's great to talk to them, and just got to keep up the conversation going.
Exactly.
That's how it works. Well, again, thanks to everybody, and don't forget to follow us on all social media. And always remember, until next time, the AAT'S rock.
They do rock.
Thank you.
Cheers, my
friend. Yeah.
You ripped my arm off.
Don't tempt me. See you next time, everybody. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.